How would you react when faced with a silent, invisible killer, imperceptible to the naked eye but devastatingly lethal, capable of frying every cell in your body and without you realizing, has already sentenced you to death? This is no ordinary killer. It is a common tool in industries and medicine, yet it harbors the potential for cataclysmic destruction. We are talking about Cobalt-60 rods. These rods, pulsating with radioactivity, are as fascinating as they are fearsome. Used in cancer treatment, sterilization of medical equipment, and even in food irradiation, these seemingly harmless tools are a testament to human ingenuity. However, their power should not be underestimated. A simple particle can wreak havoc if mishandled, causing radiation sickness or, worse yet, death. This is the duality of Cobalt-60, an ally in our fight against diseases and a potential instrument of mass destruction. In the right hands, Cobalt-60 rods are a blessing. In the wrong hands, a curse. Beware of the invisible threat, for its silence is its deadliest feature. The ominous emblem, initially conceived in the United States in 1946, has become the international standard warning for dangerous ionizing radiation. Behind the apparent geometric simplicity of the symbol lies a deadly secret that eludes the understanding of many. A study reveals that only 6% of people in India, Brazil, and Kenya comprehend its true nature. Shrouded in mystery, this symbol adorns not only nuclear containers and facilities, but also lethal devices loaded with radioactive material. A Cobalt-60 rod, thin as the palm of your hand, conceals a terrifying inscription. Danger, radiation, drop and run, warns, alerting to the horrors awaiting anyone holding it for a mere 5 minutes. Swelling like a balloon, necrotic skin, and a chilling prospect of death in the next 2 months. The warning is clear: run for your life and don't look back. However, a new ISO symbol, unveiled in 2007, adds a terrifying level. A blood-red triangle, sinister lines of nuclear energy pointing to a skull and crossed bones, while a desperate man flees for his life. ISO 21482, the international symbol for stop whatever the hell you're doing and get out of there, is the last hope for those inadvertently approaching certain radioactive death. In the face of radioactive horror, the narrative delves into the dangers that radiation poses to humans, unleashing inevitable catastrophes when radioactive materials are released into the unsuspecting public. The urgency to keep innocents away from this danger leads us to the tragic events that justified the global dissemination of the accursed ISO 21482 symbol: danger, radiation, drop and run. The dark chronicle takes us to the province of Samalayuca, enveloped by the metropolitan area of Bangkok in Thailand, where, in February 2000, a junkyard became the stage for a state of emergency caused by a source of tremendous radioactivity. The seeds of this disaster were planted decades earlier when, in 1969, a German technological conglomerate exported a radiotherapy machine to a hospital in Bangkok. Driven by a Canadian Cobalt-60 rod, the machine, intended to reduce malignant tumors, ended up triggering an immeasurable tragedy. The saga continued when the Bangkok hospital sold the machine to the Thai company KSC. The transfer was done illegally, and the machine ended up stored in an unauthorized location. In 1999, the machine was stolen from the parking lot, and the container housing the Cobalt-60 rod was sold to scrap collectors in January 2000. At this point, the radioactivity of the Cobalt-60 rod had already significantly decreased, but it still posed a deadly risk. Unaware of the dangers, the scrap collectors attempted to break into the container, inadvertently releasing an oily and toxic substance. The container was taken to a junkyard, where the attempt to open it resulted in severe radiation exposure for the workers, and the leak contaminated the surrounding area, resulting in serious consequences for the health of those involved in the local community. Continuing the story, on the morning of February 18th, the condition of the scrap collector and the 2 junkyard employees continued to deteriorate rapidly. Doctors established a link between the symptoms of the 3 patients and concluded that they were suffering from acute radiation poisoning. At 11:10 a.m., representatives of the OEP were dispatched to investigate the case. They arrived at the Bangkok hospital at 12:30 p.m. and proceeded to the Samalayuca hospital to interrogate the junkyard owner. Meanwhile, investigators went to the public sewer to retrieve the 2 small lead pieces thrown there by the other scrap collector. Analysis of the fragments confirmed the presence of Cobalt-60, reinforcing suspicions that radiation was the cause of the health problems. At the hospital, the junkyard owner's husband, suffering from uncontrollable nosebleeds, was immediately admitted. Meanwhile, the scrap collector and the junkyard employees were also transferred to more specialized medical facilities. doctors conducted a series of tests to assess the extent of the damage caused by radiation exposure. Local and national authorities were alerted about the incident, and an emergency response operation was initiated to contain the risks to public health. The area around the junkyard was isolated, and decontamination measures were implemented. Nearby residents were advised to evacuate temporarily while specialized teams dealt with the situation. The news of the incident spread rapidly, raising concerns about the potential exposure of other people to radiation. The Thai government, in collaboration with international experts, launched a comprehensive investigation to determine the extent of damage to public health and take preventive measures to avoid similar incidents in the future. The case of Cobalt, 60 in Bangkok became a stark warning about the dangers of mishandling radioactive materials, highlighting the importance of strict regulations and safe practices in managing these elements. The news of the successful removal of Cobalt, 60 from the Bangkok junkyard spread quickly, but concerns about the health of those already exposed to radiation continued to grow. The city was on high alert, and authorities began implementing precautionary measures to ensure the safety of the population. The evacuation of areas closer to the junkyard was considered, and residents were advised to stay indoors until the situation was fully under control. Meanwhile, authorities continued investigating how Cobalt, 60, a highly radioactive material used in medical and industrial treatments, ended up in the junkyard. Suspicions fell on the scrap collecting chain, and new regulations were discussed to prevent similar incidents in the future. At the same time, the lives of those directly affected by the incident were profoundly changed. Recovery would be a long and challenging process, and the aftermath of radiation exposure would leave a lasting mark on the local community. The incident at the Bangkok junkyard served as a harsh reminder of the inherent dangers of negligence in handling radioactive materials and the need for constant vigilance to prevent similar tragedies. The conclusion of the tragedy at the Bangkok junkyard left a trail of devastation and pain. The 19-year-old, along with others involved, suffered severe consequences from exposure to Cobalt, 60. His radiation burns were visible, and the fight against infections and medical complications was a daily battle. The junkyard owner and her employee, after an intense month in the hospital, managed to fully recover, but others were not as fortunate. The two workers directly involved in opening the lead container, where Cobalt, 60 was stored, paid a high price for prolonged exposure. Their health deteriorated slowly, and even after the removal of the radioactive material, the consequences were irreversible. The yard worker who opened the container had a tragic outcome, succumbing to sepsis after a series of medical complications. The other worker from the same shift also faced a cruel fate, with his compromised immune system resulting in fatal septic shock. The junkyard owner's husband, affected by a fungal infection and persistent fever, was placed on a ventilator, but unfortunately, his heart could not withstand the stress of multiple symptoms and stopped beating. Although the removal of Cobalt, 60 was successful, the lives lost and dramatically altered served as a somber reminder of the dangers associated with radiation exposure. The story of the Bangkok junkyard became a milestone in raising awareness about the risks related to radioactive materials and the ongoing need for preventive measures and stricter safety protocols. The legal process against the KSE Electricity Company highlights industrial negligence and the lack of regulatory supervision. The compensations received by the victims were modest compared to the devastating impacts on their lives. This incident led to the introduction of a specific danger symbol for similar situations, reflecting the urgent need for awareness and prevention. The ISO 21482